Greetings, dear viewers. Welcome to Diaspora Point. This is your host, Auma Bella. We are on Burkina Faso. We are talking about Burkina Faso because what is happening in Burkina Faso is unparalleled. Here is a small country, landlocked, and is growing so fast economically in the last 2 years that it is the fastest growing economy in the world as we speak. And why is that? Burkina Faso has a young leader, only 36 years old, and the man is moving at the speed of lightning in developing his own country. He has taken charge of the gold. He has taken charge of agriculture. He has taken charge of everything that is Burkinabe, and he is working with his own choice of partners. And we have a special guest whose expertise is political analysis. And I'll introduce you to our political analyst today, the one and only Grace Gibril. Please, Grace, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Karibu, tell us about Burkina Faso. What is happening there? What is the background? Tell us whatever you can tell us.
Sure. We're just really quickly, Ibrahim Traore's arrival is not just some random blip in the system that has caused a heart attack in Burkina Faso. Before Paul-Henri Damiba, who took office in January of 2022 and was toppled in September of 2022, there were 7 other leaders after Blaise Compaoré.
Wow.
So, as many of you all, maybe
That
the
is in just
audience might
5
know,
years or 6 years.
Yeah, many of you all in the audience may know or may not know, Blaise Compaoré was friends since the age of 14 with Thomas Sankara. So they grew up together,
Yes.
got into the movement for independence and, democratic change in Burkina Faso.
Burkina Faso is a name drawn from the land itself, which has meaning in our language.
Which means?
Land of honest men.
Why did you want to change the name of Upper Volta?
Yes, because Upper Volta, it meant nothing to anyone, especially to us, Burkinabe. It's a name that only reminds us of a colonial past.
And they were very, very close. So on the date when the French sponsored the coup that would topple the government and put Blaise in power, Thomas Sankara and Blaise made their way to a back room that was secured. And as and it was Blaise and Thomas and one other person, maybe one or two other military guys holding the door back and just preparing for it to be broken into. At that point, Blaise essentially shot Thomas in the back of the head.
My God.
And opened the door, and of course, so the French, like we mentioned in the prior session, the French, when they trained the military troops in African countries, they trained them under the French Legion mantra, with France first.
Yeah.
So anytime there's a regime change, especially in the Francophone countries, understand that whoever has been selected as president or is placed in power is a person who the French themselves have selected. When Blaise Compaoré, when Paul Damiba was toppled, meetings immediately occurred on Zoom or Teams or whatever you want to call it, on video, where there were discussions with the Americans and the French and the EU who they would think would be a good choice to pick. So these European nations have been picking our leaders for years.
Yeah.
For years.
Yes.
Even in Kenya, you have to do certain things in Kenya to make sure that the international organizations and powers approve your potential presidency. And that comes with agreeing that this is what's going to happen. We're not going to change the status quo. We're not going to expel, your people from our country or change the agreements that have been in place since post-colonialism. You see?
Yeah.
Now, if you look at
Unfortunately,
France's presence in Burkina Faso, you see that France has been around since 1890 in what we call the Upper Volta region. Okay?
Yes.
1960s when they had independence, but not really, because since 1960 to the present, France has essentially had control of Burkina Faso and many other African Francophone countries that they used to colonize,
Yes.
or they still colonize,
Yes.
had control of their economy. Now, Burkina Faso typically had gold, they've always had gold. And a part of the rule that the UN has also been a part of is if you, Beldina, is Burkinabe and I'm France, you come with your gold and say, I would like to sell my gold in the open market. These are colonial, post-colonial independence agreements. Those agreements pretty much state that in order for you, Burkina Faso, to sell your gold, I have the right of first refusal. I
Wow.
get to say, no, I don't want it.
My
But on top of that, I
goodness.
get to say, oh, you can't sell your gold to anybody. You just
Gosh.
can't. This is why they're able to give uranium at 8 cents, but we'll give you 8 cents. So, that's good.
Gosh.
And you'll be happy, right? At least we're paying you, right? We're paying. That kind of stuff has been
My
happening. And this is
goodness.
why the issue of Ibrahim Traore is such a volatile issue. It's like, you dare to come to my home that is gilded. I let you chip away at parts of the gold just for you to live and grow and develop. But then when I want to take the massive amounts of gold I have and walk outside and sell it in the market, you stand at my door with a gun and say, no, you can't do that.
Imagine.
You have to tell me, and I have to tell you yes or no. So that's what's been happening with all the resources in Africa, Congo,
Yeah.
Nigeria, everything.
Look at the mess
You
they have done
find
in
that kind of
Congo.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Precisely. It's the heart of Africa, and it's the heart of Africa that's the biggest gaping hole, the
Yes.
wound, biggest wound in Africa is what I see when I see the Congo.
Yes.
So the French never left. That's just the French never left. The British have never left. With the British and the French, there's the American concept. And what I don't understand, and I think a lot of Africans don't understand, is why not just do business?
Yeah.
Why not just pay us the value of the gold the gold we produce, the uranium we produce,
Yeah.
the what is it, iron ore we produce,
Yeah.
there's the just our resources. Pay us fairly,
Yeah.
even if we're cheaper, meaning making us more of a monopoly. Chinese went cheap and they made a
Yeah.
monopoly, made lots of money. But it is fundamentally about ensuring that the Black populations across the world don't develop. And if Africa is not developed, no other place is developed because no one else will find a sense of place in Africa or sense of history, a sense of culture, a sense of being. If you're looking at a place like Africa that is impoverished, poor,
Yeah.
and with bad leaders or killers who run around, killing everyone
Yeah.
like they've posed. So those are areas that have been really problematic. So between one of the things that people don't that I have had an issue with is the statistics of the population of Africa. This is not anything factual, it's just purely my thought process. I think Africa has an excess of 2 billion people. I think that what these organizations have done, they've counted the most populated cities in Africa where they get the 1.2 billion. I
Yes.
think we're much, much more than that.
I think
But
so.
even when you look at the 1.2 Even when you look at the 1.2 billion, you really get very nervous when you see what's happening with regards to the congressional hearing and what is being activated as we speak right now in terms of bringing down Traore and destabilizing Burkina Faso in a way that is just so sad
Yeah.
when they're trying to do nothing but develop and feed their own people. You find that when you look at the estimates, ages 35 and under are noted as about 135 million young people. They're
It,
the largest population on the planet. And instead of looking ahead, like, China looks 100 years, America
yes.
looks 4 years because every administration changes. And China's development with Africa is a 100-year plan. They know that as long as they're able to provide development for Africa, their interests are going to be aligned. As long
Yes.
as Russia is able to be a countermeasure to the United States, their interests are going to be aligned with African countries because African countries will have someone to go to.
Yes.
In a recent meeting of EU members, the Burkina Faso Minister of Foreign Affairs spoke in French, but he spoke very eloquently about the matter of Burkina Faso. He
Yes.
talked about some of this history that I'm sharing with you. He talked about the development that's been happening, the advancements that they've made in the past 2 years. And at the end of it, he said, we're not saying this to explain ourselves.
Yes.
We're saying this to let you know the real issue and the real progress on the ground.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we're not asking you or begging you to get along with us or to somehow come and work with us,
Yeah.
because we have the Chinese and the Russians. So we have our options are open in this modern
Mhm.
day.
Okay.
And that's the stance, and really that's the stance every African leader should take, because that is
Yes.
the stance for business. That's what they call someone is shrewd. You're a
Yes.
shrewd businessman. I like you. You really know how to get what you want, and we also get
Yes.
what we want. But you take away the business concepts, how business should typically work. The only thing you have left is racism.
Is what?
The structure is racism, the structured dehumanization of people.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and why? Why would you dehumanize the African people? And the funny thing is, despite it, we've still led the world in culture. I consider that African Americans in the United States are the reason why white Americans have hearts, have souls,
Yeah.
have a sense of empathy.
Yes.
Because without the suffering of African Americans, white folks would never have questioned the lynchings and the wanton murders that they would do to feed whatever it is in their souls
Yeah.
needed feeding.
Yeah.
Music wise, you find that concepts of music and art, and then no one even talks about the inventions that we see day to day: fountain pen, the traffic
Spark
light,
plugs,
cotton gin,
plasma, all kinds of everything.
all African, all African American inventions. You know,
Yes.
Africans in
Traffic
America
lights,
are
everything.
American.
Steam engine.
African Americans are Yeah, African Americans are American history to through and through and through and through. And it's sad because the narrative, and this really started with the academic environment in the 1800s,
Yeah.
where they started questioning the humanity of Africans through eugenics. Look at their skull, look at this, look at that. And oh, look at how they live in mad huts. We were eco-friendly when eco-friendly was not even a thing.
Yes. Do you, very quickly, the roundness of that mud hut is, it works very well with the environment. If there is flood, water will just go around. If there is wind, wind will just go around. It will not, it will not, it will not break the building.
Yeah.
And the mud that
Yeah.
was used was durable, but then when you break the house, it integrates back into the soil. So to your point,
Precisely.
we were already environmentally conscious way back, and there are many things I can say, but that would be another program.
Of course, you know. So in terms of Burkina Faso, it's really an issue where it's a seriously heavy lift for Ibrahim Traore. This footage where he leaves and goes to the streets very early in the morning, 5, 6 a.m., and he sees the mamas, the older ladies sweeping the streets. So everyone is locked in Burkina Faso, locked in. And one big thing that I'd like to mention is what Ibrahim Traore has done, and he has been doing since he started. He created a citizens army. This is why that industrial complex and the bullet making and weapons making is tied into the security of the homeland. It's called the Volunteers for the Security of the Homeland, something like that. VS something, VSB or something like that. And those are the people you see on TV, the population saying, we are not going to stand for this. We're going to defend our country, blood and honor, you know? So what he's doing is what Americans did during the period of the revolution against King George.
King George, yes.
They armed their own people and created a revolutionary war.
Yes.
And what Ibrahim is doing what he's actually taking a playbook from the Americans themselves. If you arm your population responsibly, and you send them off, before the terrorists even think about coming to that village, they're going to know there's some guns and bullets with their name on it.
Yes.
And this is the saddest thing. And one of the things is if you see the story of Africa, you find one man is paid money by some agency that works for an agency that works for a government. He conscripts and kidnaps a bunch of young 12, 13, 14, 15-year-olds, gives them Kalashnikovs in their arms, and they take an entire city, an entire country, small children.
Gosh, terrible.
This is the story of Africa. Think about it. Think of Fode Sanko in Sierra Leone, you know?
Yes.
Think of all these guys in the Congo. The Congo was a big one. Think
soldiers.
of the what is it? Yeah, what is it? The religious, what is it? The God's army in Uganda. What was that thing called?
Yes. I forgot, but I know. Northern Uganda, yes.
Yes, Boko Haram, same thing. You
Yes.
conscript a bunch of little kids, You kidnap them, do whatever you have to do. In the case of Sierra Leone, Fodisanko would cut the back of their necks and put what looks like opium, opium milk, the poppy.
Yes.
And they would say that they were floating, and as they were floating, they could
Oh.
just slash a pregnant woman's belly open.
Oh.
So the things that these colonial, non-colonial, these Western powers have done that go so deeply into our spirit, into our spirituality as Africans, that has created a situation whereby the ancestors themselves are saying enough,
Yeah.
enough.
Yes.
And this is why Traore is essentially an incredibly powerful figure, because we're not seeing him as a human being. We're
Yes.
seeing the spirit of Patrice Lumumba. We're seeing the spirit
Yes.
of Tankara. We're
Yes.
seeing a spirit of Diop. We're seeing everybody who's been spirit
Yes.
of Rahila Lamadiba. Everybody is inside
Yes.
of him.
Yes.
You see, everyone is inside of him.
Yes.
And I feel very sad because the US is focused on Ukraine and Russia. US
Yes.
is focused on China. US is focused on North Korea. And the big one is US is focused on the issue of, Israel and, of course, the Palestine issue.
Yeah.
I don't understand why you would walk into a protracted war in Africa and risk losing everything, because governments are already expelling Europeans in a quiet, very legitimate way.
But you see, they
Governments are
didn't
already
think
getting
that
rid of
would
these
happen.
companies that
They didn't think
exploited.
that would happen. They have gotten away with it all this while. And the one
Yeah,
thing that
yeah.
Traore has not pronounced, and I'm sure he's aware of it, is that I come before you,
Hmm.
not as me. There are millions of my ancestors behind me. He has not said it, but we
Yeah.
know.
It's very moving. No, it's very moving. It's very, if you, an African understands what is happening, we are not, I always say that, I think Europeans see things from a third dimension. We see things from fourth, fifth dimension, because
Yes.
we're tied into our ancestral, and the only other group of people who have understood it is the Buddhists, because
Yes.
before they pick the Buddha, before they pick the Dalai Lama, they bring items from 1,000 years of Dalai Lamas, and they
Yes.
tell that small boy who's being identified as a potential Dalai Lama to pick an item. Some of these
Yes.
items are fake. They're bought at the Walmart in, in
Yes.
the Buddhist
Placebo.
environment. Placebo. But there's certain things that are 1,000 to 1,200, 300, 400 years
Yes.
old, that if that young person picks it up and can talk about it,
Yes.
they're the reincarnation of the lamas that go
Oh, the
centuries
spirit.
past.
Yes.
Yes, spirit. So those are the ways in which we Africans have been programmed not to
Yes.
think. But then
Yes.
when you look at CIA, you look at CIA declassified documents, you see Americans themselves are all into the spirituality
They are.
studying,
Yes.
in different ways. So they're very, very much into it. And the mechanism is not just, oh, we want to be spiritual. No, it's to find out what your enemies are doing by any
Yes.
means necessary. And if
Yes.
you have to use the spirit realm to do so, they have experimented in some places. One would say they've been successful. So
But
I just urge Africans not to
just to add on
question.
that, the reason why I believe the Western world made sure that helped Africans to debunk this idea of spirituality, because they didn't understand it, and it was very strong. And they understood it was very strong, stronger than whatever they have. I'm
Mhm,
sure they have their own spiritualities and whatever, whatever. But the African one was something that is innate, backed by the ancestors. And it scared them. It
mhm.
scared the Western world. And
Yeah.
they kept telling Africans how it was pagan, while it is the real thing.
What we have to also remember, that the elites in Europe have always tapped into spirituality. Presidents of the United States have also tapped into what we call the occult, ways to break the realms of God knows what, to find out whether they're going to die, to find out if they're going to be wealthy, to find out if they're going how to control the world. And while we, the normal proletarians, who essentially we're finding out that payment for college was something Reagan created, in order for, because one of his aides, one of his assistant secretaries said, we want to make sure that we don't have a highly educated proletariat. So we need to make college something for selected few. This is something people don't know. And when you look across the globe and you look at the 1800s, being intellectual and being in university and being professor or having your degree was left for the elite. We were supposed to be the farmers, the workers, and pretty much the slaves, the proletariat.
the field workers.
We answer and serve the elite.
Yeah.
And that happened during the Reagan administration. This is why, because a lot of states were doing free college and university because they could afford it. And he cut it out and said college across the board in the United States under federal law is must be paid. They can be loans from the government that they pay whenever they're ready to pay it. But you see, my point is,
so they took away Pell Grant and all those grants that were not to be paid back.
No. Pell Grants came after. I'm just saying that before states would directly, you just register and go to college if you wanted to, because vocational skills was really big also. So the states were affording. California had free schooling. Some other states had free schooling, free college. Free college. And they cut it off. And then they said, well, there's the Pell Grant. Pell is a congressman who proposed it to help people, pay for. So the Pell Grant came much later. I'm just saying that prior to Reagan, and in the 60s and the 70s, as states, independent states, got income, they decided under their legislation to pay for college for people living in the state. This is why they have in-state tuition. It was a stopgap to say, well, at least let it be cheap for those living in the state. If you're going to force us to make people pay. So I'm just saying to you that the elite have always been present. The elite have been very, very present. And Reagan himself was into spirituality. His wife looked at remote viewers and looked at what do you call those people? The readers,
psychics,
tarot readers. Psychics is remote viewers is a modern way of calling psychics. CIA calls them remote viewers in their records. We and the normal people call them psychics, and we laugh.
Nancy Reagan was a lot into psychics. I don't think there's anything she did that was important that she never consulted the psychics.
There's the Monroe Institute that actually studies this stuff. You can sign up and go and be a student there and learn how to talk to dead people. It's just very crazy. But the point I'm making here, guys, is with regards to Traore, the Africans look at it from a deeply spiritual perspective. And this tells us that as Africans across the globe, we have some connection that we still yet to understand. But it's beautiful. Now, Traore's recent, I don't want to end this without touching on Traore's recent assassination attempt. Traore was traveling on a convoy from one part of Burkina to another part. And apparently they'd gotten intelligence, I suspect from the Russians, maybe the Chinese, who knows, that there were two snipers structured on a high position who were to essentially attack his convoy. And right before the snipers actually enacted what they were planning on doing, they were found by Burkinabe military forces. Those two combatants, I guess, those two assassins,
snipers,
either have been held until either last week or were held by the Burkinabe army.
Wow.
So there's a lot happening, and I think that Russia plays a role. All assumptions, no facts associated. I don't know. But I can only guess that Russia has their satellite logistics supporting, providing logistics support through like satellite. Like you've got some people entering from the north. You might want to check them out. We're seeing chatter in the internet and chatter in phones. These people are talking to these people. And oh, by the way, one of you guys just got offered $5 million. You might want to talk to him.
The
closest one was where his own bodyguard, one of his many bodyguards, was offered $42 million to shoot him close range. And he went and told Ibrahim. So again, the spirit of a people can be no more stronger than that of Burkina Faso. We can all aspire to be the Burkinabe people and to stand behind their leader. I think we fall short in Kenya. We fall short of supporting our leaders. We fall short of holding our leaders accountable. And our leaders fall short of looking and prioritizing the need for our development, our growth. And they don't understand that with the growth and development of the people, especially I can only speak on Kenya, will come wealth and riches for them. Incredible, unknown wealth and riches.
For everyone.
But we're thinking short term. They're thinking for a year, while we're all, as people, in terms of our wants and our needs and our desires as human beings, we are looking at 100 years. Why? our children's children's
Yes.
children, what world are they going to live in?
Yes.
What place are they going to have in this
Yes.
world? That's why Traore is doing what he's doing. He knows his life is forfeit. He has to know his life is forfeit because at any time they could kill him.
Yes.
So you're looking at a man who understands that he's not functioning in the three-dimensional realm.
Yeah.
He's functioning in the fifth, fourth, fifth, sixth dimensional realm, and the
Yes.
ancestors are holding him up.
Yes.
And they're moving him
And they
forward.
sure
So
are. They
we have
really
to
are.
really,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I don't know whether people have processed that. That anytime you speak the language of Africa and you say God bless,
Yes.
our African continent, God, the prayers are being answered now, and the catalyst is Ibrahim Traore. It's not just, oh, he took over and he did this. It's like, oh my God, people are eating. Look at how people are doing tomato planting. One of the things, Wodemai is he is the most famous vlogger in Africa. He is in Burkina Faso right now on the ground showing tomato. He was actually did maybe a month or so ago, tomato cultivation, mango cultivation, and all of these are being sold in the regional market under AES.
I saw him the
so
other
this
day
is what I
interviewing the
mean.
Ghanaian president. Has he interviewed Traore yet?
Yes.
Oh, Traore is too busy.
Ghanaian president was sometime last year. He may make his way to Traore, I'm sure, but
Yes.
it's such a
Yes.
serious time. I don't know if Traore will have time for that. But
Yes.
he's just busy touching the Burkinabe people. He went from one plantation where there were a bunch of Burkinabe harvesting tomatoes. He went to the wheat farms. Then he
Yes.
went to the mango farms and he was helping them harvest mangoes.
Yes.
And it's beautiful because you're seeing the political side and the generals and everybody in Congress, and then you're seeing Traore, who speaks fantastic English, by the way, very impressive.
Is that true? Because no,
And,
I'm glad you said that, because people are saying that it is AI that makes him look like he's speaking English, but he does speak English, right? If he does, it's very good English.
I was nervous when I saw the first one that I suspected was dubbed. Maybe he was speaking somewhere else, but what made me realize it was actually his voice was when the footage came out of him waking up in the morning to go and say hello to the woman who was sweeping. It's the exact same voice.
Yes.
Exact same voice.
Wow.
That's exactly how he sounds.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was just, I just think that he's not your grandmother's dictator. That's number one.
Yeah.
He is not your grandfather's president, and he's absolutely not your grandfather's leader.
Yes.
He's a new generation, he's a new breed that he's clearly leading the charge in terms of structural changes. The members of the side, the Niger and Mali, are clearly hard-worn military guys. They know the military side, so they give him and they support him. But from a structural nation-building perspective, Traore is your man. Yes, he did geology, but as you know, I did public relations, but I've gotten a passion for political analysis.
Yes, and you're good at it.
I've gotten into different fields because been very big on law and justice. And with law and justice, you look at the political system, you understand how things happen.
Yes.
What people don't know is that these gold, diamond, uranium companies write the bills that are passed in Congress.
Yes.
They're called amicus briefs.
Yes.
People think that a senator wrote this bill. No, he sponsored it.
Yes.
His people took the amicus brief from the corporation, oil, gas, everything else. They wrote what they want to happen in terms of the law to support their agenda.
Yes.
The legal aid or the congressional aids formatted into a bill.
Yes.
Sometimes it's a 500-page bill. The congressman never looked at it. The aide tells him, well, this is about just getting more funding for your campaign and making sure that the oil flows. And he never read it. And he goes in front of the Congress and says, well, we want to propose it. They talk to each other in lunch rooms to see, hey, listen, if you support my Burkina Faso initiative, I'm going to go ahead and support your initiative to burn books down in Florida. I'm going to support your initiative when you bring it to the floor to give maybe more clean water in Minnesota. There's always bartering of things, and it's based on sometimes the most sinful things that we allow to happen, as what is unfolding in Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
If the U.S. chooses to involve itself in a French matter, this is a French matter.
Yeah.
This is a French matter.
But
Let's remember, this
they
is
are
French.
all after the gold. They are greedy. They are all wanting that gold. They feel like, how dare this black man stop us from getting the gold? They feel entitled. And this is something that African leaders have to start letting these Western powers
Mm-hmm.
know that, no, you're not entitled. You want to buy it like everybody else. You want discount, negotiate,
Mm-hmm.
but don't start killing our leaders because you want what belongs to us. So what are your parting shots?
What is it? Parting shots are like just everyone needs to remember it was never about Gaddafi shooting down Lockerbie. It was an issue that needed to be addressed. Gaddafi had paid reparations to the families, and that was done. In fact, United States had friendly relations with Gaddafi, and the oil it was pulling. But when the Gaddafi was Gaddafi was toppled, no one talked about the gold reserves that Gaddafi had in Libya.
And
No
the
one's
sweet
talked about it.
oil, you know,
It's
he had
gone.
a very
Well,
special kind of sweet
well,
crude.
they're still, I mean, that's now, we know that's still coming out of Libya, but I'm just saying the gold that Gaddafi had, the billions of gold,
Yes.
that's gone. Same thing with Saddam. Of course, oil is coming out of Iraq. We know that, but the gold and the stashes of cash that Saddam had, we don't know where that is. If they're talking about gold and the general is spitting out gold, that means they intend to siphon off whatever gold he has, and of course hand over the refineries to the companies that are, highest bidder, which is a la the Trump administration. Who's the highest bidder? Who can control the gold in Burkina Faso? And most importantly, if they're going to do this in Burkina Faso, Tanzania needs to be very careful. Ghana needs to be extremely careful. All the gold producing Uganda needs to be extremely careful. Because you have to remember there's things happening where they're still discussing the Israeli resolution. You're finding Europeans or white folks or the Boers in South Africa asking for their own state. You see? Meanwhile, Israeli on the political side are leaning into African countries. And when the Israelis start leaning into you, they want something. And you forget that Rothschild and all those guys are all Jewish. The corporations are built by the Jews, and they run it. So at the end of the day, 98% of Congress is enamored to AIPAC, the Israeli lobby. So we're talking about Traore on this level, but when you start looking at the businesses and the ownerships and the power and how 98% are run by Israel, essentially runs the American political system and the political system, excuse me. You find that it's a huge issue, and the only way that it'll stop is if we make everyone aware that we are aware. But I don't understand how the American government could put themselves in a position where already American dollar may be waning at some point, because now China has now spent the last 2 months garnering new trade deals with all the American partners. Japan is upset, about this tariff issue. So I don't understand why you would involve yourself in Burkina Faso and assume it's a small country and it has such a huge reverberating effect that may be happening in Africa. Because if you lose Africa and any influence, and really China gets a foothold solidly and Russia gets a foothold militarily, then there's a problem. And now we really are going to lose our capacity to, in the spaces where we did do things well, diplomatically. It's very sad. I just see it's a wrong move. It's not advisable at all. And I blame the advisors of whoever is talking to the general and talking to the congressman.
My
Those are my parting
sense
shots.
is
It's very
that it's an ego issue. How dare this young man stop us from taking, from why is he processing his own gold when we should be the ones doing that? Number one. Number two, he's inspiring the rest of Africa to rise. That is a big deal, I think. And if they crush him, then they think that that would be an example to the rest of Africa to be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't. But I think it's too late now. I think what they better not do nonsense to Traore, but even if they did, it will even hasten everything. So if I were them or their advice, I would tell them, chill off a bit, see how you can do these things differently, try negotiations. You can negotiate, you can have discounts on this. You may not pay the market rate, but the way they're going to your point, they're going to lose everything. Look at France. Their people have been chased out everywhere in most of these Francophone countries. So
it's important. It's important. Nicolas Sarkozy and Francois Mitterrand said, without Africa, French will die. French will die.
And they
France
know
will die,
that,
excuse me.
but they're going about it wrongly. So, Grace, thank you so much
thank you.
for
Yes.
your
And
insightfulness.
Of course. I just want to say that Traore has offered to trade with them, and
Yes, they
It's very
want it for
unfortunate.
free. And to your point,
Yep.
the ambush time, the time they come to kill the leader of any country, like they did in Libya, like they did in Iraq, that ambush time, they get all the reserves of gold that belong to that country. And that's a big
Exactly.
heist. That is also another thing
Yeah.
they keep banking on. But you know, you can't
Yeah.
do the same thing all the time and expect that the people who are on the other side, the receiving end, are not learning from you. We have seen what they
I have
can
to
do.
say
I
one
think
last
our
thing.
main job now is to find out, how does Traore remain safe? How does the rest of our leaders who dare stand up to these Western powers, how do they remain safe? But go ahead, you wanted to say something.
One last thing. I think, unfortunately, when you start seeing things happening in the open, that means the plan is already underfoot. The reason why the general was in Ivory Coast is because they're going to launch from Ivory Coast, a neighbor to Burkina Faso. They're going to launch this offensive from Ivory Coast territorial spaces. It's likely they're probably going to do one of those things where the Osama bin Laden maneuver, where they land and kidnap Traore, they get him out of Burkina Faso and just disappear him somewhere, because everything else has failed. So this is where the prayers need to land: is whatever plan is afoot, that it be scattered to the winds immediately, and
Amen.
that just the ancestors cover him, because it's afoot. I mean, if he showed up. I mean, he's pretty confident to have shown up in Ivory Coast. That means that Ivory Coast is going to be the launching region.
Yes,
They're doing strategic
Ivory Coast is
planning. They're gonna.
expected to play that role, because I understand that even these people who tried to assassinate Traore ran back comfortably to Ivory Coast, and they have asylum there. Even the guy who assassinated his friend, the guy who assassinated Sankara,
Yeah, Blaise Compaoré.
Blaise
Yeah.
Compaoré, is in Ivory Coast. And Ivory Coast,
Yep.
if you understand the history of Alassane,
Yeah.
Ouattara,
Ouattara.
he is a Frenchman in black skin. He married a Frenchman who is it's almost like a political partnership with that woman of his. And he's French in and out. And he is sworn to the French Legion and to the French loyalty. And he will do everything to upset Africa. And that is something Africans have to think about and zero into. Thank you so much, Grace.
Yeah, he's not going to survive. Ouattara won't survive if he does enact, because even Ivory Coasters are very angry with him online, so he won't survive his presidency if he allows this to happen. So he needs to remember that. It's very sad. Very sad.
And
Thank you so much.
they shouldn't even wait that long. I mean, this man has done so many terrible things for that country. He has destabilized Ivory Coast for so long, but that's another story for another day. Thank you so much, Grace. We have to go now.
Thank you.
Dear viewers.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Dear viewers, please subscribe. Please give us a thumbs up and share widely.